What's going on, guys? This is Pete. Welcome back to the Carrot Poker Podcast. This week we're going to do much more of the same that we did before. We're going to do some hand review. I've got two hands prepared for today. They don't seem to be overly complicated hands, but I think they are hands that are instructive nonetheless, so hopefully we can get through both of these. The reason I've chosen these two hands are that they're posted by a new member, and I like to give new members to the forum, who have paid to join and stuff, like a bit of camera time on the Carrot Poker Podcast, because the longer you've been on the forum for, the higher the chance that I'll already have reviewed one of your hands at some point, if not more than one, maybe two or three or four. So given that we're doing a lot of hand review, I thought I'd do two hands by a new member in the forums today. I will just leave him anonymous, as I tend to do with every member, just in case there's any embarrassment about the way the hands have been played. But I don't think these hands are particularly embarrassing at all. In fact, I think that they're both played and posted about fairly well, to be honest. I'm not going to go into every single detail of the conversation below the post, because there's a big back and forth between the original poster and one of the regs. Not in like a bad hostile way, I just mean there's a lot of discussion going on. So I'm not going to wade into that, but I am going to go into like what Hero says about the hand when he originally posts it, and just go through what I think I would do. So I'm going to start with the first hand, which is where we are dealt Ace of Clubs, Ace of Spades at 6 max game. This is 5-L, and we're on the button with a stack of $7.48. We go ahead and let's see, there's a poster in the hijack who checks his post, and we go ahead and ISO to 20 cents, which I think is totally fine. Under the gun +1, or hijack, as I prefer to call it, calls, and we go heads up to the flop. Okay, so basically this flop comes down King, Queen, 3, rainbow. We've got black aces, we've got King of Hearts, Queen of Diamonds, 3 of Spades, no backdoor draws or anything, just a rainbow board with 2 aces. And Villain decides to lead out here for 15 cents into 47. So the flop donk is like less than a third pot. Now, right away when you see this, I don't think it's been specified here like exactly what kind of player this is, but I mean, I'd assume it's his first hand at the table since he's just posted. Yeah, Villain sits in and posts, sorry, so it's his first hand. So we don't really know much about him other than his stack is $4. Hero comments, after the $4 stack, which I guess is a reasonable reaction, like salivating over the fact that this is certainly a weak player. That coupled with the post is just, yeah, I mean, absolutely, this is a weak player. So at regular tables, when this guy sits down and you have, your 2 seats to the left of him, you can expect quite a few good things to happen at this table. So definitely a lucrative seat, and I agree with the sentiment of from Hero. So on the flop then, he leads for 15 into 47, which immediately tells us that this is definitely some kind of weaker player, some kind of fish, and I would honestly imagine that a donking range here is actually like a better thing for us to see than a check. And the reason for that is that, well, money goes into the pot, so the pot's Villain's being very friendly here, and that he's growing the pot for us and like achieving what we want to achieve anyway with an overpair. And also, like, this sizing is just indicative that his range is capped. That's why I really like seeing this donk as Hero, because it's very likely when a passive looking random fish just like leads out for a third pot, that his range is like a lot of things, like maybe gut shots. More likely, I suppose, would be like one pair, like pair of queens, second pair, top pair of kings. Could be like Jack 10, open end straight draw, something like that. Could be just absolute nothing, or an underpair or something as well. I mean, don't be too specific here. Like, one big mistake I see people say is they'll be like, right, put Villain on a range. What are you waiting for? Like, put Villain on a range, go. And it's like, well, that's kind of easier said than done, because we don't know how this guy plays. So instead of going into like exact detail and prescribing him some exact range, which, let's face it, it's just a guess. It's not going to be like what we actually think he does. It might be useful for gaining experience of what likely ranges are from different player types in different situations, but to say that Villain's range is King Jack, King 10, King 9, etc. is a waste of your time, honestly. It's so unapplicable in game. It's not something that's ever going to put you in a position where in game you can replicate it and be like, okay, I did this exercise at home, so I know exactly what Villain's range is. For one, it's too complicated to do it quickly. In 10 seconds, you've got to act, and for two, it's not very helpful anyway, because even if you could do that, like, you're probably wrong, because it's a guess. So keep it nice and vague, keep it to something that will on average be accurate, that's also humanly computable in a in-game time frame, and just say, well, Villain's range is, random top pairs, second pairs, draws, air, sometimes, but less likely, under pairs, that kind of thing. Very unlikely that Villain has flopped like a set of 3s here, though it is possible he plays it that way. And I think kings and queens are just so unlikely with this line that we can almost completely discount them. Even king queen, honestly, I think is more likely to like donk bigger or go for a check raise, most likely, or even like a slow play check call. I don't even see king queens, like top 2 pair, donk out at third pot here very often. So I think Villain's range is just very weak, very like kind of defined towards being something but not very much. and like a lot of the time, not all the time, I don't want to soul read that, but very often that'll be the case, and certainly just capped and a range that we can immediately start raising against for value. So Hero writes here, flop is an easy raise, with which I agree. I want to make monies, M-O-N-I-E-S, why not, from his top pair plus draw, just a pair, ace high, 9 high, all that jazz the fish can chop with. Excellent, well done. Like, you've not put him on exact combos, you've just said, this is the kind of crap that he can have, he's a random fish, what do I do against this crap? I raise. Perfect. So Villain calls the raise, as we kind of expect him to do, like 70% of the time or something here, and the turn rolls off the Jack of Hearts. So the board now reads King, Queen, 3, Jack with 2 hearts, and we don't have any hearts, we have the black aces of clubs and spades, as opposed to the other black aces, of which there are loads, obviously. So on the turn, he then decides to grab the initiative again and bet half pot. Now, folding here would be absurd. Like, the only question here is, like, do we raise again for value and protection and pot building? Or do we just call? And I think the pot's obviously getting so big now that to raise this turn would be kind of to, like, commit ourselves to getting it all in. And I don't think we really want to go down that route against a player who, you know, could be kind of passive, has certainly improved a lot in that turn. Like, any 10-9, any kind of, like, King Jack, Queen Jack has just got there. I don't think we have the worst hand super often here. I still think we're good like a lot of the time. Like, we're ahead of most of Villain's crap here. But after we raise and get it all in, I don't think our equity is going to be fantastic. So I think this is clearly just a call, as hands like ace 10, 10-9, Queen Jack, King Jack have improved. Hero writes, the turn sucks, but not so much that I'm always beat versus the fish. Good. Yep. Or even that you're often beat versus the fish. I would go a bit further. I don't know if I should be raising here. Yeah, I don't think you should be raising here. I think you should probably just confine yourself to the reality that you're not doing great if more money goes in right now, and you can just call with your gut shot in position. Like, you really don't want to get jammed on in the turn, and like there is a pot size like kind of jam left if you do raise that turn, and Villain can make that very happily with all kinds of stuff, even something like 10-8 of hearts or God knows what. So you don't really want to go ahead and put yourself in a situation where you're either raise calling the turn, because that's a bit gross, or raise folding the turn. If you knew he was a mindless ruler who was just going to like donk call off like one pair, you could raise turn, but I think we need to have a specific read for that he's an especially bad sub-breed of fish. Okay, so we decide to just flat the turn, which I also agree with, and the river comes down to 3 of hearts. So this is a great river. You might be like, oh no, it's a flush springing river. This is a fantastic river. Like, it completely like shoots us, catapults us ahead of all 2 pair, which honestly are the most combinatorially likely thing that Villain sucked out on us with on the turn or had on the flop, because it's much easier to have 2 pair than it is to have a flush. Like, to have a flush here, Villain needs to have like exactly ace 10 or 10-9 of hearts, really, or maybe some queen x of hearts hand, like ace queen of hearts, ace queen 10 of hearts, etc. The queen is diamonds, the king is hearts on the flop, by the way, so any queen x that's hearts does make a flush here. But that's not that many hands, whereas something like king queen is 9 combos, queen jack is 9 combos, king jack 9 combos. That's like 27 combos that could be in his range. Now, I did say that I discounted king queen on the flop, so you could like bring that down to like 2 or 3 combos, but you're still talking about 20, 21 combos of 2 pair even after making that discount. So I think that on average here, we're going to be ahead of a lot more hands than we were in the turn. Like, sure, there's some hands that now have moved ahead of us, but there's a lot more that we have moved ahead of, that I think that, you know, on the river, when what happens here is that Villain leads out 135 into 287. I think the question is here, like, I mean, Hero says I'm torn between all 3 options, and that just means that he has no idea how to play the river spot, because there's no way in hell that raising river and folding river could ever be close. Like, basically, either calling the river is close with one of those options, or it's like just an obvious call or an obvious raise or whatever. There's no way that folding and raising can be like in the same ballpark, so you need to decide like which one of those is totally out. And I think folding the river is completely out of bounds. Like, it's just ludicrous. Like, you're getting like you're getting like 3 to 1 here on the river. You need to be good about 25% of the time. Remember, this is an end of action spot. One of the comments that Ahmad left on this post was, you know, you should really go and look at your required equity. Like, how often do you need to be good to call? And when you've got that target in your head of like 24% here or whatever it is, I think, because it's a bit less than half, but I think that folding just looks really absurd, especially when we've moved ahead of all those 2 pair hands that could even play this way for kind of value. You know, they just think we have like ace king or whatever, or they just bet 2 pair because it's 2 pair. They're not thinking deeply enough. They're just a random fish. Like, clearly folding is a disaster here. Let's eliminate that right away. It's just not part of the agenda at all. So then, do we raise for value? Well, I think it's getting a little bit thin. I mean, Villain could still have some 1 pair he's going to call with, like King X or could call us with 2-pair. But I think there are like some combos of straights and flushes here as well that are certainly going to call. So I think calling is probably my choice. I don't think this is far off a raise at all. Like, I'd imagine if we raise here and get called, we're going to be like kind of close to 50% equity, but I don't think we're going to be a whole lot better than that. So I think river is just a clear call. I don't think there's much else you can do here again, unless you've got the read that villain is playing like 1 pair as a raise call, as a bet call in the river, which most people wouldn't be. I think the bottom of his range here to bet call is probably 2 pair, and that might not always bet call, and he might not even have king queen. So, you know, you might be, after you raise river, you might be facing a similar problem as you did on the turn, and that when you do get it in, you end up just like not being in great shape. Like, I don't think you're going to be crushed if you raise and get called here at all, but I don't think you're going to be in fantastic shape either, probably. I mean, it's a close spot, to be honest, between raising. So definitely folding is like completely out of the picture there. I just don't think it's something that we could ever do. Yeah, like, actually, there is only 75 cents left on the river. It's very little. Like, shoving you might yield just over 50% equity. You know, one of the mods has replied here and said, like, you can never fold river. The 2-pair the 3-pairing counterfeits all their 2 pairs against your hand, which is absolutely right. So I think the mod's given some good feedback on that one. That we shouldn't be ever looking to fold turn or river, basically, which is what original poster was asking. So definitely think that's probably like close. You could put villain on a range, like, decide how often he has 2-pair compared to a flush and stuff. Probably does still have 2-pair more often. The question is, you know, he probably does play it that way as well. So I think shoving river is probably all right, but it's kind of like break even-ish. It's not making you a lot of money or anything. Okay, let's move on to the same poster's second hand here. Credit to this guy, he's been very active since joining the forum, which is what you always want. Like, if you pay like a sign-up fee to a private forum with like coaches and mods giving you feedback and things like that, you kind of want to be making the most out of it and just getting into a really regular rhythm, like a habit of posting. It does the forum the world of good as well when there are people like this on who just constantly post hands. You can never post too much. That's the thing. Like, if people don't reply to one post, it's not the end of the world. You can't really post too much. Okay, don't spam like 10 hands a day or whatever, but if you post like 2 or 3 hands a day, that's a lot, but that's going to like make the forum a very lively place. I'm going to set up a group chat very soon as well, so we're going to have a chat client that's basically going to run independently of the Google Plus forum, where we can all hang out and things like that. So that's another incentive to get involved very quickly. admin@carrotcorner is my email address. Shoot me an email if you're interested in joining, or sign up for coaching, and you get free access. So, right, this next hand, we have pocket tens, and original poster starts off by saying villains 27, 24, 14% 3-bet over 50-ish hands. Kind of aggro looking reg. Okay, fair enough. I think the flop is standard. I don't see a raise accomplishing much. Okay, so let's see what happens here to lead us to the flop. So we open under the gun, get called in 2 spots by button and by small blind. We open 3x, get called twice. Can't really see anything wrong with that. Standard to the flop, 9-8-3 two-tone. And there are 2 clubs on this board. The 8 and the 3 are both clubs. We have the 10 of clubs and the 10 of hearts. So we have like a backdoor 10 high flush draw. Not that it's going to be that significant in this hand, but just may as well stipulate. So 9-8-3, we have pocket tens. And again we face a donk bet. So donk bet seems to be the theme of the day, which is good. I like coincidentally reviewing 2 hands that have the same theme. I think that goes really well. So good job in posting those 2 together for me, even if it was totally by accident, which it probably was, but whatever. So on the flop then, small blind leads for 24 into 50, so it's another one of these small bets, this time a bit bigger than in the last hand. This is a half pot size donk bet this time. Again, assume similar things if it's a fish, but this is actually a reg who's 27-24, so I would assume a stronger range. I would assume that he can have draws here like Jack 10, Queen Jack, flush draws, maybe some, if he's a really loose pre-flop, like Jack 9 suited or whatever, but more likely like some sets, some pocket jacks, maybe like some under pairs, some hands like that. A lot of draws here, I would imagine, are like kind of a fairly significant part of his range. I'm always wary about saying that to people because in most situations, the untrained poker eye likes to be like, I put villain on a draw because draw is like the first thing that came into my head and there's draws available. And what students love to do is just like over-exaggerate how many draws someone can have and how likely it is that they have the part of their range that can be classed as a draw. So you do need to be careful with that. But that said, I do still think in a board like this, there are a lot of draws. But when we do have the 2 10s and a 10 of clubs, we can discount those. We block draws like really heavily here. So yeah, we should be somewhat cautious here. Like definitely sets are in his range, but there are still things like 6-7 suited. You know, Queen Jack Jack 10, despite being blocked, are still there to some extent. And obviously, like, there could just be like ace nines or like pocket sixes or like random pairs leading out here. So small blind leads half pot and we call. And Hero says, I think flop call is standard. I don't see a raise accomplishing much, but maybe getting me blown off my hand. Yeah, honestly, if you get 3-bet in the flop anyway, like, you're probably in pretty bad shape. I wouldn't really worry about that. But like, the main point is that raising the flop, yeah, like you say, it accomplishes nothing. You're just going to be value owning yourself. If you do build a big pot against a flush draw, you know, that still has reasonable equity against you. Do you really want to like raise flop and hammer turn, putting villain on specifically a draw when there are like 9 combos of sets in his range and some 9-8 suited? Definitely not. Big mistake. Be cautious here, you know, probably wouldn't be planning to like call down on that many runouts, but I would be calling flop. So we call flop, like, tens is not a great hand here, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Not 3-way against a reg who leads. Like, yes, he's a more aggro reg, but you're never going to be in great shape here. You're going to be kind of struggling, I think. But for this price, getting 3-1, we've got by far enough like good things going on to call. It's just not going to be like massively making us a lot of money. So we do call, and the other player folds, and the turn comes down to 4 of diamonds. So the board is now 9-8-3-4 with 2 clubs still, and small blind leads 62 into 98. Like, at this point, things are definitely getting a bit worse for us. Like, at least the turn is bricked though, and the draws have gone down in equity. And I think that given there are still like plenty of like queen jack, plenty of flush draws and things like that, like, sure, we block some draws, but don't make the mistake of like jumping to the conclusion that because we block some draws that they can't exist anymore. They're just a bit less likely, that's all. Apologies if you can hear my idiotic dog like crying outside the door. She's just like in one of these moods today where she's going to do everything she can to piss me off, it seems. But yeah, how dare she cry for attention when I'm recording a podcast, right? Not cool. So then on the turn we call again. I think this is reasonable given that our equity has just improved significantly against the draw portion of villain's range, and also due to the fact that in 5-0 games, like, it's not super likely for even the more aggro regs to go ahead and bluff rivers. Like, it's just not going to happen all that often. Like, triple barrel percentages are generally pretty low. So I would recommend calling this turn, but again, not being super happy about it, and just going from there basically. So we do call turn, and river comes the queen of spades. So the board is now 9-8-3-4 queen. Flush draws have bricked, but jack 10 has got there. We do block jack 10 though, so jack 10 suited is 2 combos. So the queen is not actually like a great card for villain's range, given that we block the jack 10, which are the hands that we're most worried about. However, it's not a great card for us at the same time. Like, it does make some things get there. Queen jack now moves ahead of us, for example. Villain bets 150 into 222 now, and, you know, I think like still like sets and 9-8 are very much in his range. Like, yes, he can have busted flush draws, but I think the queen hits a lot of those and therefore discourages them from bluffing. Like, so they're either likely to check or go for like a value bet that's ostensibly too thin, but in any case it decreases the amount of the time that villain bets as a bluff. So a lot of flush draws have queens in them. A lot of ones that won't even choose to bluff here, and jack 10 and stuff like that's now got there. So I think that in queen 10, like, other straight draw, gut shot things have made a pair as well. So I think that calling this river would be too loose, especially given the population read that we've just stipulated that people don't triple that much. And it's a card that decreases bluffing frequencies in a couple of ways. Like, it makes straights get there, and it also causes other draws to make pairs that will make them not bluff, like I say. So those two things will really decrease villains bluffing frequency here. And we have a lot of, like, we have jack 10 in our range, we have sets in our range. Like, we don't need to be like raising this flop necessarily. We can keep our range kind of wide and still have a lot of better stuff here. I mean, I might raise flop here given it's 3-way actually, and we do need to kind of get value kind of urgently, but there's still a lot of better hands in our range than this, than 10s. So I think calling river is just unnecessary against this population. Like, you could argue for a call if you were going to try and play a balanced strategy here. Having 10s with the 10 of clubs is definitely a very good blocker hand to call down with, but I think like you do just want to go ahead and probably give up here against the population. I think it's fine. So villain says on the turn, I feel like I can fold versus a less aggro villain. Well, yes and no. I mean, there's not that many combos of hands that beat you on the turn. That might be a bit nitty. But I felt this guy was a little bit bluff heavy here. Well, he might be, he may not be. Let's say he's more likely than average to be bluff heavy rather than say he is bluff heavy, because that's unjustified and you're, again, like doing soul reading, you can't actually make a case for there. I mean, you can say his range is more bluff heavy, but you can't say that he is bluff heavy, like, for sure. More bluff heavy than average on average. You know, I'm just trying to like keep things vague, keep things within the realms of what we can know, basically, and being a bit nitpicky, but yeah. So he then goes on to say, I might be putting too much stock in my small sample size. Yeah, I do think so. I agree with that. Like, good self-reflection there. I certainly don't think villain can be value betting worse. No, certainly not. I wouldn't imagine so. But it might be possible to see like some ace 9 sometimes. Like, it wouldn't shock me. and you will even see random stuff like pocket siphons from time to time. On the river, he says, clubs miss, Jack 10 gets there. They're only likely 2 combos of that, as we don't have a big fish at the table, and villain wasn't closing the action. Correct, good, so you're using like the table dynamics there very well to make a judgment about how villain's going to play his range pre-flop that then affects his post-flop game. So good job overall with the analysis here. I don't think you said what you think on the river though. I would go one step further and say whether you think it's a call or a fold and why, and that way you'll get some better feedback to correct your thought process. So I think river's a fold. I think it's fine. It's not really a big deal. And yeah, that brings me to the end of these 2 games. I'm going to wrap up without too much further ado, because that awful whining sound may well be trickling through to you guys from the other side of my office door here. So I'm going to go like deal with this dog and wrap up for now and do my coaching lesson in half an hour. So, and enjoy the rest of my Sunday. Hope you guys have a good, I guess you'll be watching this on like Sunday night, Monday morning. So have a good week. Let me know if you want coached, you want access to the forum, you want to give me feedback about the podcast. You can get in touch at admin@carrotcorner.com. More info about me and my services, check out carrotcorner.com, the website, where you can also find extracts of my book and stuff like that. So thanks for listening, guys, and I will see you regularly from now on every week over the weekend with a new podcast. Hopefully try and get out Friday, Saturday, the next one. So stay tuned and keep letting me know what you think. Thanks for listening.